Hello everyone, it's Kari from sunshineinmypocket.com, and today I wanted to share with you a really fun project using this new stamp from Miss Ink Stamps. This says the first rule of 2021, never talk about 2020. And I just got a real kick out of this sentiment, and I really wanted to use it with the Queen of Hearts, of course, because you know I'm in love with all of these stamps. So I am going to be using a few of these star sprinkles from Miss Ink also. At first I thought I was going to make a shaker card, but it kind of turned into something a little bit different. And so I've laid it out, you can see here on the panel, I've kind of laid out how I want it to go. And I'm going to use the pointing Queen of Hearts. And she's pointing at Alice, who's sitting on her chair here. And this is the Alice image that I'm using, and then I'll also be using this tea party set. And then from this stamp set, the large and the small mushrooms and the pumpkins as well. And you can see here I have one on the left hand side, but I'm going to mirror image it and also put it on the right hand side. So they're kind of framing that sentiment. And here's how I do it. Now, I know you can do this on a water mat or a media mat if you have that. I don't have one of those. So I just use this large stamp, and it's just a plain stamp. You can use the back of a stamp if you have one that's big enough. And then you ink up your mushroom, put it onto that stamp, the plain block, with your ink. And I usually do this a couple of times. And I'm trying it right now with amalgam ink. So I'm going to put my paper onto that stamp block there, and then we're going to transfer that ink to the paper. Now this one didn't turn out as well as I wanted it to. You can see it's very light compared to my original one that I stamped regular. So I'm going to try it with VersaFine Onyx black ink, which is usually how I get a very good impression. So here I have another piece of paper, and I'm just putting that on the stamp block there. And look at that. You can see it's a nice dark impression, almost darker than my original there. It might even be a little darker. The problem is that it's VersaFine, so it's not Copic friendly. So I'm cleaning the stamp off real quick because I want to make sure not to have that stick on there. So anyway, back to what I was saying is, when I did that transfer, I used the VersaFine Onyx Black, and it's not Copic friendly. So I made sure to let that dry a really long time before I colored it, and I still got a little bit of ink transfer, but I think it worked out okay. What I'm showing you here is a picture of a color inspiration that I got, color chart from Pinterest, and I wanted it to kind of be bright and a little Dr. Seuss-ish. So I chose some Copic colors to match that color combo, and I think it's they're fun colors, really fun colors. So I'll list those on the screen for you here. I'm starting out with orange, and I'm going to make this large mushroom that's going to be on the left side in the orange colors. And a lot of times when I Copic color, I find that as I blend out those colors, I lose a little bit of the darkness from the darkest color, so I'll go over it again. And that's exactly what I did on this orange mushroom. So I start with the darkest and then blend that out through the lightest, and then go back again, starting with the darkest, and blend it on through. And I think that gives it a lot more depth. And so that seems to be the way that I like to color. So give that a try and see how it works for you. So I'm going to finish coloring the top of this mushroom, and then I'm also going to color the stem of the mushroom the same, and I will color underside of the mushroom a little bit lighter. But I'm just showing you how I'm coloring this up here. I'm not going to leave all the coloring in because this video actually was a little longer than I expected, and so I'm just going to leave in a portion of the coloring to give you an idea of how it is going. So for this orange mushroom, you've got those darks and lights, and now I'm going in with the pink colors here, and that's going to be on the smaller mushroom, and then I'm going to color up the leaves with a variety of greens, actually just a couple of greens. I made the green part a little bit easy on myself. and then the pumpkins are going to be blue. And you're going to find out that in my coloring, I'm not doing the traditional Alice in Wonderland coloring. This is kind of a topsy-turvy Wonderland world today, and so none of the colors are quite traditional. Now I've got this stencil also from Miss Ink Stamps, and it is a keyhole, and you get two different sizes, but not only do you get the stencils, but you get the negative pieces as well, this piece here and here. And so you can do a lot of really neat techniques with this stencil. Today we're going to start out using the negative piece here. Otherwise they would throw away. I'm so happy that they just included this in the stencil set. So we're going to start with the largest one, and I'm just adding some repositionable adhesive here, and I'm going to tack that down temporarily while I do some ink blending. So I'm just going to take some inks here. This is some distress ink, and I'm using my blending brushes to blend on just a touch of that ink. This paper that I'm using today is Bristol Smooth, so that I get a nice smooth transition with these colors. I also like ink blending on Neenah Solar White. I find that I like them both about the same. So Bristol or Neenah would work really well here. So that middle color was the antique linen, and now I'm going in with faded jeans on the top, and I'm just putting down a light layer at first. This is just to get it started and start off the ink blending with that negative piece in the middle. And as soon as I finish this light layer, I'm going to remove that piece, and I'm going to instead put the smaller piece inside. So you can see I'm lining that up right in the middle. It might be a little bit difficult to see on the video. And now I'm going to take the larger keyhole outer stencil and tape that on so that when I color up in between those two stencils, I'm just going to get that center portion. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want that center portion to be lighter than the darker outside portion. You're going to see what I mean in just a minute. So I'm inking up in between those two stencils, just kind of with a light layer. And then once this is done, I'm going to go back and darken up the rest of it. So I hope that makes sense. You'll see how it turns out in the end. We kind of get a neat two-tone double keyhole effect. I don't know, something like that. But it looks really neat. So here I am just finishing that up real quick here. Now I'm going to remove that stencil. As you see, remove the smaller keyhole, and you can barely see the difference. And then I put the larger one back on and re-inked the whole entire thing. Sorry, I missed that part of the video. I accidentally lost the footage, but you can see that the inside portion is lighter and the outside portion is darker because I darkened that up. And this is how I'm going to lay this all out. I'm going to stamp the sentiment now in the center. I love the sentiment. I think this is truth in our world and in Wonderland. And so I'm just going to stamp this down with some VersaFine Onyx Black, and then I will heat set that with some clear embossing powder. First roll of 2021. Never talk about 2020. Now, I got a little bit of extra embossing powder on that ink because it was freshly inked, so it did stick a little. So I would suggest to wait for it to dry or to heat set it before you do your heat embossing. Your inks are stamping with the ink and then embossing with clear. But it worked out okay because I took a paintbrush and just swept off the additional that I didn't need of the clear embossing powder. And now I'm just going to glue down the bottom layer. And you can see I didn't even color up that pumpkin in the front because the Queen of Hearts is going to cover the entire pumpkin, basically. And so I didn't worry about coloring that. I'll glue those down, making sure not to cover up any of the words. But see how cool that is when you have a mirror image and it just flanks either side of the sentiment. It's kind of cool, a cool look. So now I'm going to place Alice down right there. I'm going to use some 3M foam tape This is my favorite, and you can see my roll is getting low. I always get a little nervous when my roll gets down this far, but don't you worry, I already ordered another one. It's on its way. So there we popped up the Queen of Hearts, and now we'll just pop up Alice. She's sitting in her chair and enjoying a cupcake there, which I think we all deserve a cupcake right about now, don't you? I'm going to pop her up, and you can see I colored her not traditional as well. She has a yellow dress, and so does the Queen of Hearts. Now we'll pop up the tea set here for the tea party with the foam tape, and we've got a lot of dimension and a lot to look at already on this card with the key hole in the background, that awesome sentiment, and all of these beautiful images. But we're not done yet. So I'm going to first add this to a top folding card base, and this is a 110-pound paper card base. And I'm going to glue that on first because I like to add a lot of extra embellishments to my cards. You might have noticed this. I like the bling. I like the extra. And so I'm going to add some of those stars from the Miss Ink embellishments there. This one here that I showed you earlier. So I'm adding a bunch of stars to the sky. I'm going to add some glitter pen to the undersides of all the mushrooms. And here I'm just attaching those stars with my rainbow jewel pick or jewel gem setter. Yeah. And now I'm going to add some dots to all those mushrooms. I had chosen a couple different colors, but in the end I went with white because it popped the most, I felt, on this scene. So I'm just adding dots over all of those drawn in dots on the mushrooms. So you don't even have to think about where to put these, which is a beautiful thing. I started with a green dot on this green mushroom here, but it did not show up nearly enough. So I just cleaned that up with my craft pick here, and now I'm going to add the white. So I just added the white Nuvo drops to all of the mushrooms, even the little tiny ones, and I like them to be just precise enough that they cover up all those dots. And then on the little cake there are some cherries, so I'm using this red Nuvo drops for the cherries on the cupcake and the cake. And I also end up adding it to the hearts and a stripe on the teapot. And that is going to finish up all of our embellishments today for this card. Take a look, a little close look at all there is to look at, all the bright colors. This is a really fun card. I think it's bringing a little bit of happy and a little bit of lightheartedness to the fact that we all have survived this year so far. And so that's one reason this has my heart. So here's a couple looks at this card. Thank you so much for stopping by today. Be sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help a lot with YouTube. Here are a few more videos you might be interested in. Just go ahead and click on those to check them out. And thank you again for stopping by. I really appreciate all the likes and comments. Thank you so much once again. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.